Hey guys, welcome to episode 11 of Ask Jungle Scout, where we answer your top questions on Amazon, FBA and Jungle Scout. So make sure to leave your questions in the comments below for a chance to get them answered. So Mark asks, what is a good profit margin in dollars? So to give you an actual number, I'd say $5 to $10 per product, but it really depends on what you need to make your business profitable. I would aim for a 30% profit margin on all my products, but at the end of the day, a $2 profit margin is still better than zero. That's obviously not an ideal profit margin, but perhaps you might be making up for it by sales. You might only be getting $2 per product, but you might be making like 50 sales a day. The other thing I'd take into consideration is the unit cost. If you can get a product for like $2 or $3, then I'd be happier taking a smaller profit margin. Whereas if I'm paying, $50, $60 to get a product in, I probably wouldn't be happy with a $5 to $10 profit margin, because if there's ever any refunds or anything like that, it will quickly chew into that profit margin and just not make it worth your while. But to sum it up, if you've got a product that you source for $5 to $6, I would be aiming to get a $5 to $10 profit margin. Is it a bad idea to launch a product close to or during its season's peak? For example, a product I'm looking into peaks in Google Trends around May. Is it smart to create the new listing on Amazon at the end of April, early May, and hope to get sales and reviews and accept the risk that my sales will gradually drop for the next 6 months? Or should I just move on to a different product? Okay, this is an interesting question. We wouldn't normally recommend going into a product that is quite seasonal. So what I would do if it were me, I would stock up before the peak season, utilize that peak season to sell off all that inventory. You might have a little bit left over afterwards. You might have to reduce your price, get rid of that stock, and then just leave that listing and don't restock it until the season comes around again, and just plan to sell that as a seasonal product. The hard thing here is that it is really difficult to forecast exactly how many sales you're going to get. So the trouble is that you may overstock and not sell all of them, and then when the season is gone, you're left with all that inventory. So that's the risk that you're taking. However, of course, the upside of it is that you could potentially get a lot of profit during that peak season and a lot of sales. For the product that you're mentioning, where you said that the peak is in May, and you asked, should I wait until the end of April, early May in order to get my listing up? I would say no. If you're planning to utilize the peak that's in May, I would get that listing up as soon as possible and start to try to get at least a few sales in so that you can get a few reviews on your listing. Because even though it's a popular product, it's not just going to sell instantly. You still need to follow all the rules, and you still need to have reviews and sales to get your listing ranked and to get it noticed. So the sooner that you can start getting a few sales and a few reviews, the more you're going to be able to capitalize when all of the sales are coming in. Because rather than having 0 reviews, your listing might have at least 10 or 20, and more people are going to buy it, so that you can really utilize that peak season. So how do you offset or prepare for any long-term storage fees? Well, like I said, it's really hard to forecast how many sales you're going to do, and so you don't know how much inventory you're going to have left over. But what you can do is, as it's getting towards the end of the season, and you know that there's probably only going to be a couple weeks more of sales, if you've still got lots of inventory, I'd just be gradually reducing your price, because basically the best thing you can do is try to get rid of your inventory by the end of the season. So just watching your sales and just reducing your price accordingly to get rid of that inventory before the season is over is probably my best suggestion. Should you move on to another product or not? Well, as I said, we don't normally recommend going into a seasonal product, particularly if it's your very first product. If you wanted to play with this, I would say do it once you've got 1 or 2 established products that sell all year round and you've got a bit extra profit to play with, because this is a riskier move. Okay, Jacob asks, also coming from Australia and just starting out on my first product currently, how are you going to take advantage of the marketplace when Amazon FBA comes to Australia later this year? What pointers do you have for new sellers like myself? Thanks, Jacob. So what I would do if I was just starting out now, and keeping in mind that Amazon is coming to Australia later this year and I wanted to take advantage of that marketplace, I would start with a listing now in the US and just focus on the next few months in building that up. What you want is the experience of setting up that first listing, having a few months to optimize it. There's so many lessons that you learn from launching your very first product. So it's great to do that in the US. The other thing that you'd be looking to do is to try to build some cash flow. Have some profit put aside so that you've got a bit of money or a bit more capital to invest into new products when Amazon opens in Australia. The other thing I would do between now and then is product research. There's a lot of markets and niches that are already saturated in the US and other markets. However, they're now all going to be up for grabs when it comes to Australia. So I'd keep that in mind. Barbara asks, what methods do you guys use to keep your product at the top? I use strong PPC every month, and I do give about 10 giveaways every month. What should I do more, as some of my competitors are really pushing me down? Thanks for the question, blah blah. So I have a hunch here that you have a low number of reviews on your listing. There's a period at the start of your Amazon listing until you get, and there's no real magic number, but let's say between 25 to 50 reviews. Until you can get at least 25 to 50 reviews, there's this period of time where you really need to just grind out with the PPC spend and doing giveaways on a fairly regular basis. And this is at break-even cost. So you mightn't be making much profit, potentially even no profit, but you just need to rinse and repeat this process over and over and over, unfortunately, until you can get at least 25 to 50 reviews. Because, if you've only got 5 reviews, if you've only got 10 reviews, it's going to be very hard to have a profitable listing with PPC and so forth, because your conversion rate's going to be really low. People might be clicking onto your listing, but they're not going to buy it because there are other listings with more reviews. So maybe you need to go a little bit heavier or more frequent with the giveaways. I definitely recommend having an automated email campaign in place if you don't already. That will help increase your chances of getting reviews a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately, you just got to keep grinding this out until you get to this magical number, whatever it is, at least I'd say 25 reviews where your PPC spend will start to get more profitable. You'll start to get a lot more organic sales. Until you sort of hit at least that number of reviews, you're going to have to be happy with just breaking even on your profit margins until you can get to that point. The other thing I would look at in order to make sure you really keep your listing on top is to be constantly optimizing it. So look at your images and compare it to your competitors. Do you have the best images? Could you perhaps take some new images with a different angle that might stand out more so than your competition? I think images are a huge part in selling your listing, but then also looking at your description and your title and seeing whether these things can be improved. Optimizing your listing can do a great deal of good when it comes to increasing your sales and standing out from your competition. So Alicia asks, could you go into greater detail about the anatomy of an Amazon listing? How would someone sell on your listing, and or how would you sell on someone else's listing? As a newbie, I found this confusing. If you could explain the buy box as part of this, that would be awesome too. Thanks, Alicia. So the physical process of actually selling on someone else's listing is quite easy. If you go to any Amazon listing, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's an option that says Sell on Amazon. You then fill out some details on the condition of your item, and with a couple of clicks, you're then selling an item on someone else's listing. Now, as long as you're honest and accurate about the condition of the product, then this is totally fine, and this is a totally legitimate thing to do. Let's say you purchased a GoPro camera off of Amazon. You opened it up and then you no longer used it for whatever reason. You could actually go onto GoPro's listing and you could sell on their listing if you stated that your product is used. You could then sell it on there, and you can select whether you want it to be fulfilled by Amazon, in which case you would send it to Amazon, or fulfilled by merchant, in which case you would just send that out yourself. Or the other scenario is that perhaps someone's gifted you a brand new GoPro still in its box. Again, you could sell on GoPro's listing, and you could sell it as new because you have it unopened, and it's the it's from the manufacturer, it's the authentic one. As long as it's the authentic one, then this, again, is totally fine. Those are two legitimate cases of selling on someone else's listing. So if you're a private label seller, any of your customers can actually go onto one of your listings and sell off the product that they purchase from you. That's totally legitimate. But because it's so easy to sell on someone else's listing, it can go into this sort of shady area where people start trying to sell fake versions or non-authentic copies of a product because they're seeing that that listing is making lots of sales. So that's what people are referring to when you hear the term hijacking. It's where someone is selling on your listing, but they're not just selling one used copy, they're claiming to have a whole heap of new stock, which couldn't possibly be the case because you are the sole seller and the manufacturer, so no one else should have access to your product. In terms of the buy box, when there are multiple sellers on a listing, Amazon needs to decide who has control of the main page when someone clicks onto the listing and clicks buy. So this person is called the buy box owner. It's the person that by default is the seller on the listing and will capture that sale when someone clicks onto that listing and clicks buy. If you're a private label seller though, and putting your own brand onto products, you should be the only seller on that listing anyway. So you shouldn't have to worry too much about the buy box, because that's more if you're trying to sell on someone else's listing. So I wouldn't worry about that too much as a private label seller. That's all of today's questions, guys. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the episode, and make sure to leave your question in the comments section below so that I have the chance to answer it. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you then.